The DPM defends the Prime Minister's alleged abuse of power. A PLP apologizes for laughing at controversial abuse remarks. A grieving mother wants to be left in peace to grieve her son. Plus, Grand Bahama police make a multi-million-dollar drug bust. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Vuanic Toot, and MB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, Prime Minister Perry Christie has been harshly criticized by the opposition and most recently at least one of thousands of struggling homeowners following his revelation that he called the bank's managing director to save a tax dodger's home. Well, today, Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis came to his boss's defense, insisting Christie's actions were not an abuse of power. Dana Smith reports.
Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis said he doesn't see anything wrong with Prime Minister Perry Christie's bank intervention on behalf of VAT consultant Ishmael Lightbourne. This is despite criticisms from the opposition that Christie's actions were inappropriate and an abuse of power.
I don't know how it could be an abuse of power. How is power abused? The fact is that we all who are in a position, we are often called upon as representatives of the people to intervene, to lend assistance where assistance is required.
Davis's comments come amid widespread controversy over a revelation Christie made in the House of Assembly 2 weeks ago. First Caribbean International Bank had secured a court order to repossess government tax advisor Ishmael Lightbourne's Cable Beach home. Christie had said in Parliament he called the managing director of the bank and asked her what he could do as Prime Minister to stop Lightbourne from being put out of his house. This comment sparked criticisms from the FNM and the DNA at a time when Lightbourne was already in the center of a scandal over his tax delinquency.
It is very disingenuous to suggest that it is an abuse of power if a person comes to me and says to me, Mr. Davis, I have a challenge, I have a problem. You might be able to help me if you speak to somebody for me.
Davis explained Christie's actions were not an abuse of power because although Christie may have reached out on behalf of Lightbourne, it was ultimately up to the bank to make a final decision, not the Prime Minister. Davis added he has made interventions of his own in an effort to assist someone.
So if I speak to a bank and ask them to bring relief to someone and they decide that they will, that's not my abusing of power. It is them listening to me and deciding on the representations made by me, they will lend that assistance. Where if they don't lend the assistance, I can't do anything about it. I myself have called banks, have called other persons to lend assistance to persons. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Deputy Leader of the Free National Movement, Loretta Butler Turner, has accused Christie of circumventing the law or circumventing the ability of the bank to secure its interests. Butler Turner has called for the thousands of homeowners whose mortgages are in trouble and whose homes have been repossessed to demonstrate against Christie by way of a peaceful protest outside the House of Assembly. Davis said he's sure those in the opposition would provide assistance if a constituent or any other Bahamian came to them seeking help.
You have to separate the government from me as the individual MP.
Right.
It's not the government who's going to step in. The government has not stepped in. Mm-hmm. Right? If someone comes to me as a mortgage borrower who's being evicted, and they ask me, see what I can do for them, I will, but it doesn't mean that will succeed. Because at the end of the day, it is a personal arrangement between the borrower and the lender. I'm not interfering with that relationship.
Davis joined State Minister of Legal Affairs Damian Gomez and Agriculture Minister V. Alfred Gray in their defense of Christie. For his part, the Prime Minister has yet to respond to the criticisms. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
In other news, despite insisting that he had nothing to apologize for earlier this month, it seems Central and South Andros MP Picewell Forbes has had a change of heart. When contacted by the Nassau Guardian on March 13th to find out if he regretted laughing at Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller's comments about the abuse of an ex-girlfriend, the Bahamas High Commissioner to CARICOM refused to apologize, insisting he would not be connected to the Miller controversy. However, today in Parliament, Forbes said he takes full responsibility for his actions, acknowledging it was no laughing matter.
While I firmly believe the remarks were made in jest, by laughing, my reaction to the statement, which would have been signaled out in the local media, would have been made questionable to some and seen in poor taste to others. I take full responsibility for my behavior. It was never my intent to offend anyone, although I might have been seen or perceived to be offensive and insensitive in some quarters.
Forbes apologized to victims of abuse and all Bahamian women, particularly his mother, wife, and 2 daughters.
As a man and as a public official, I in no way want to be interpreted as being callous, dismissive, or inconsiderate to the past and present predicament that too many of our grandmothers, mothers, sisters, aunts, or children have experienced in domestically violent situations. Let the record reflect, Mr. Speaker, that I, Picewell Alexander Leon Forbes, being of sound mind and an empathetic heart, do not condone abuse or violence in any form. Mr. Speaker, it is no laughing matter.
Forbes says in November he read with alarm domestic abuse statistics. He pledged to do all that is within his power to assist in the fight against abuse. A Jamaican woman has been convicted of running a sex trafficking scheme. Today's conviction of Chevany Sasha Gay Hall marks the country's first conviction for human trafficking. The 24-year-old showed no emotion as the forewoman of the 9-member jury announced her guilty verdicts on 4 counts of trafficking in persons and 2 counts of unlawfully withholding identification papers. The Jamaican victims claim that Hall tricked them into traveling to the Bahamas by telling them she could get them jobs. Once they arrived, Hall confiscated their passports and forced them to sell their bodies to repay her for their airfare. Hall returns to court for sentencing on May 7th. Relatives of a former murder suspect who was killed earlier this month are speaking out tonight, saying their grief over the 25-year-old's death has been compounded by his ruined reputation. The mother and stepfather of Carlos Sculla Coburg sat down with our Jasmine Bonamy.
It's been weeks since he was gunned down, but Colbert's mother says the pain of losing yet another son to gun violence has not subsided. In the span of 8 months, Julie Hutchison has lost 2 sons. She spoke to our news team while meeting with executives of FOAM. The mother of 3 who did not want to show her face on camera for fear her son's killers may retaliate, admits her family is living in fear. Both Colberg and his older brother, Rajesh Pinder, died under eerily similar circumstances that ended in a hail of bullets. Pinder died on August 30th, 2013, and Colberg on March 15th, 2014. But it's this latest murder that their mother says has been the most difficult, due in part to the stories about her son's criminal past. Colberg was reportedly shot numerous times in the head on March 15th during a triple shooting at a home on Pearson Way off E Street. Colberg was once listed as a suspect in the December 27, 2013 Fox Hill shootings that left 4 people dead and 7 others injured. However, he was never charged with the crime. Hutchison insisted she doesn't know why the police targeted her son. She explained while clutching a photograph of her eldest slain son.
Carlos is now gone. Carlos is not coming back. So then they should be at peace as well, because they said he was a menace to the society. And every time a murder occurred, they pick him up. So, they should feel at peace now, because if he was the one doing all the killing, then Nassau, the Bahamas, should now be a crime-free nation. Because whenever something happened, they came, they took him, or they put his face all over the media. And then you know what really bothers me? They would put his face all over the media, have the public think he's a monster, and then they would never ever come back to the media to say, well, Carlos was not the person, and he's dead, and they still running on about him being a suspect in this murder and that murder. Carlos is gone now. Let him rest in peace.
Hutchison says it's no secret her son was known to police, who she says have searched her home several times since his death, but she insists the family just want to grieve in peace. She adds that even that's hard to do given the fact that no one has been charged with either of her son's murders. But Hutchison says the family is relying on prayers to pull them through.
And as long as God is in the vessel, we'll smile at the storm. Prayers at this point are the only things that can help us and keep your mind calm. The human part of you would question it, and yes, that was they were my children. I love them, I miss them dearly, and it's really, really hard on me, but I have to go on.
She says her focus is now on her remaining kids and grandson. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Bahamas Electricity Corporation Executive Chairman Leslie Miller is speaking out against what he says are increased incidents of harassment, threats of assault being reported by BEC's disconnection staff. He says it's a troubling trend that will not be tolerated. Royston Jones reports.
Miller said just yesterday 2 female disconnectors in Pinewood Gardens were forced to radio for assistance after they were allegedly held hostage for more than 15 minutes by a group of men who threatened to assault them. The women, who Miller said were afraid for their lives as they sat in their car awaiting assistance, were fortunately unharmed during the ordeal. Miller said the corporation has forwarded the matter to police, and the customer, whose power was scheduled to be disconnected, had their meter box removed pending the outcome of the matter. But Miller said yesterday's incident is just one of many alleged assaults that have taken place in the last few weeks.
In one case, a gentleman picked up a rock, and when I say rock, I mean a big rock, and told that he would smash her face in if he was to disconnect his light. 5 men in the neighborhood then went to the gate and stopped them from leaving the gate. And they were threatened. One fella said that he'll go home and get his 9mm and kill all 2 of them if they come in his yard and turn off his light.
Miller said BEC instructs disconnectors on which households to turn off, and while the corporation understands that times are hard, it's nothing personal. He said accounts in arrears where there has been little to no effort to pay the bill must be disconnected. According to Miller, the average customer on New Providence is $5,000 in arrears.
One male disconnector in Elizabeth Estates this morning was threatened. And in some cases, fellas throw a rock at the vehicle. Okay? One female disconnected in Malcolm Road just a few weeks ago was threatened by 2 occupants. The children of the house and the father was eventually locked up for the threats that they made against our employees. Another male disconnector 2 weeks ago was blocked in a yard on Cowpen Road and was physically threatened that they was going to beat him in the ground if he turned their light off.
Of the 32 disconnectors, 6 of them are women. Miller says the majority of them have reported numerous incidents over the last year, ranging in severity. He said last year a customer allegedly pointed a gun at a disconnector and forced him to leave the property. And in another incident, a disconnector reported that he was almost stabbed by a customer as he attempted to disconnect his power.
We asking the public to please show some restraint. And to the fellas, show some class. You don't threaten women. And you are now going to face the full extent of the law. And only God knows when your light can be turned on again. But it ain't going to be no time soon. Because we're not going to allow you to threaten these women. And those fellas should be ashamed of themselves. They ain't got no shame for a man to threaten a woman in that manner. And to held those 2 women hostage. I want to apologize to those women. I met with them this morning.
Miller said while police are investigating each of these incidents, BEC will take further steps and disconnect the meter boxes of any customer who harasses, threatens, or assaults any of its disconnectors. Reporting from BEC headquarters, Royston Jones, NB12.